Yeah, welcome back to another edition of the From Freedom to Bondage and Back Again playlist. This is part 3 of the topic within that playlist regarding the Mark of the Beast. And remember, we're starting off by reading this. It's actually a chapter in a larger book called the Charagma, the Badge of Servitude Yesterday, versus the card, the Badge of Servitude Today. And we left off up here somewhere with this post-it note. So I'm just going to start here. It says, this beast or jurisdictional authority with only lamb's horns was able to cause everyone to get this mark. And let's take a look at 669 down here, footnote 669. Strong's 5480, Charagma, from the same 5482, a scratch or etching stamp as a badge of servitude, or sculpted figure, statue, a graven mark. Strong's Concordance also, Strong's 5480, Charagma, from the same 5482, a mark, graven, a stamp, an imprinted mark of the mark stamped on the forehead or the right hand of the badge of the followers of the Antichrist, the mark branded upon horses, thing carved, sculpture, graven work, idolatrous images, Woodside Bible Concord. Okay. Now, we've discussed earlier, I'll just kind of briefly recap, that the mark, there's two marks. There's the mark of God, which is an and proposition, what you do and what you think, meaning you keep the laws of God and you love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And the mark of the beast is an or proposition. It's what you do with your right hand, what's your work, your fruit, or what you think or believe. Okay? So this is where the people that do good deeds, but in their ideology and their beliefs, and a lot of their fruit, they're part of the civil system of this global economic order that's going to become mandatory. That's the thing. This mark right now, both marks are voluntary. There's coming a day soon that the mark of the beast will be made mandatory. And you can see that that's what's going on. Slowly and surely they implemented all the elements of the mark of the beast voluntarily several years ago. In fact, I've told most people that, every woman I've met, whether Christian or Jew or agnostic or atheist or Buddhist or Muslim, if they're a civilian. So like for here in the United States, what I mean by civilian is a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen with a state-issued birth certificate, social security number, state ID, driver's license, passport, bank accounts, credit cards, insurance, marriage license, whatever. Okay, all of the things that are in your wallet that you need to operate within the civil system, especially in the stream of commerce, those are all the elements of the mark of the beast. So your social security number, your credit cards, your driver's license, your insurance cards, bank debit card, all of that stuff, employment ID badge to get into a building for your employer. All of that, any licenses that you have for occupational licenses, professional licenses, business licenses, all of these elements that enable you to function within the civil system, the commercial system, those are components of this mark of the beast. And all of those you need in order to function. But they're, like I said, they're voluntary at this point. None of those things are mandatory. Now, they're kind of mandatory if you want to operate in that system, but if you want to operate in God's system, you don't need any of that stuff. But that's a completely different system, and I'm telling you right now, it's kind of an empty nation because there's not very many of us over here on that side of the wall. There's a few of us that are in the world among you civilians, but we're not of it. We're not members. We don't have those things. But, most of you are in and of the world. And you're supposed to come out of her, my people, or strive to, before this mark becomes mandatory. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to. You have all the way up to hour 0 to make that choice. And I understand that's a difficult thing to do. And I am hopeful and prayerful that, most people, especially those people that call themselves Jews or Christians, or just good spiritual people, people that say I'm spiritual, but I just don't like the church. Well, I get it. I get you there, partner. But they're striving to do good kingdom tracks, doing what God said to do as best as they can with where they're at. I'm hopeful and prayerful that those people will be able to come out into the asylum state in that day. And that's why we need some people to come out early to help create that asylum state for when this mass exodus occurs. Because they're going to need somewhere to go. And they're going to need people that are already doing it to teach them how to do it and are prepared to take them in to give them shelter under the wings of God's protection. Kind of like an underground railroad, but for believers. The wise virgins that are seeking to become chaste bride for his return. Okay? They need a place to become washed up, to get their clothes all white, right? Because right now in the world you can't. If you're keeping the civil laws of the world, that is causing you, because you have to damn near break every law of God. So that's not a virgin. That's a whore. So we gotta get a chance for these people to become virgins, to get cleaned up, to stop being a whore. So when they refuse to take this mark in that day when it becomes mandatory, they've got to have some place to go, because they're going to get cast out. They're going to be kicked out, like when the Israelites were kicked out of Egypt on that Passover night. Now, they didn't have a lot of people that were waiting for them out in the wilderness. Unlike in about 70 AD when Rome sacked Jerusalem, those people coming out of Jerusalem that night, or during that period of time, that siege of Jerusalem, it wasn't just one night, unlike the Exodus. There were what we would call Israelites, Christians, good Torah observant, doing the will of God, doing what God said to do, in places all over the Near East and Carthage, northern Africa, all over the place. So they had that kind of underground railroad to help those people coming out of Judea that had to leave with nothing. If they got caught, if the Roman centurions suspected them of having Roman coins, they'd gut you. They'd cut you open and take those coins out of your gullet, because you were stealing from Caesar. So you're gonna come out naked, pretty much. I mean, the Israelites coming out of Egypt came out with their kneading boards. They came out with some stuff. You're going to be able to come out with some stuff, but you got to be careful. You don't want to be taking anything that the state and the civil system doesn't allow you to take. Be careful. Anyway, so this is interesting. We'll pick this up. This beast, or jurisdictional authority with only lamb's horns, was able to cause everyone to get this mark. That is to say, to get a badge of servitude. If they refused, they could neither buy nor sell anything. Now, this is thinking about commerce now. Do you know the only thing you've grown up in the United States and around the world is commerce? That's all you know. You only know going into Walmart or Jewel Osco or Walgreens or Piggly Wiggly or Rayleigh's or Albertsons or some, commercial grocery store for your daily bread, to buy to buy your hamburger under cellophane wrapper. You only know about going into Ford and Chrysler and Jeep and Chevy to buy your commercial motor vehicles. You only know about going into Texaco and Unical and Quick Shop and all these places to buy your gasoline and your cigarettes in the stream of commerce. Every one of you probably is employed in the stream of commerce using your Social Security number as your taxpayer identification number, and you're paying an income tax and having Social Security taxes and other taxes withheld. That is to say, to get a badge of servitude. If they refused, they could neither buy or sell anything, which could include their labor. Try to go get a job without using your Social Security number. Just try it. Try putting all those things that are in your wallet and your purse right now. Put them aside, don't use them, pretend you don't have them, and see how far you get in your daily life. You can't use your ATM card. You can't use a credit card. You can't use your bank accounts. You can't use a checkbook. You can't use any of that stuff. Can't use your driver's license. Can't use your Social Security number. Can't use your birth certificate. Can't use any of that stuff. And see how far you get. If they did not work for the beast and or this image of the beast, they would be excluded and persecuted, even unto death. Now, I think I mentioned in one of the previous videos in this little, as we started this discussion here about this mark of the beast, during COVID, people like me who don't have those things in their wallet, stores like Walmart and several others during the COVID lockdowns, or, well, actually when they weren't technically all locked down like some places, but, if you wanted to go into Walmart, they stopped accepting what we call cash, paper money. You had to go in there with an electronic payment form, like a credit card or a debit card or, something like that. Well, I don't have any of that stuff. I'm not a person entitled to any of that stuff. So, during the COVID lockdown, there was I couldn't go in and buy and sell in those places that wouldn't accept cash, because I'm just an anonymous customer that I can convert stuff into, like, foreign exchange. If I'm over here in the kingdom of God, Walmart doesn't accept the payment that the kingdom of God accepts. Just kind of like, if you go in and take a euro, if you're in the United States and you take a European Union dollar, a euro, into Walmart, they're not going to accept it here in the United States. You've got to convert that currency from euro to US dollar to, if you were here as a foreigner from Europe here in the United States. Well, I'm like a foreigner here. Although I'm native born, I'm just not a corporate member of your body politic. So I have to convert, just like a European has to convert euros into US dollars, or somebody from China has to convert yuans into dollars or whatever, if they're coming to America. Even though I inhabit and dwell here, for me to go into that system, I've got to convert property into this worthless pieces of paper to be able to go and buy stuff that I want within that stream of commerce. And when I do that, I pay all the taxes associated with it. I don't bitch, moan, and complain about that. That's Caesar's. Render to Caesar that which is Caesar's. Okay? So not everyone works for the government, or do they? The news media announced on April 15th, a number of years ago, that the average worker works 3 hours a day for the government. I'm assuming they're assuming an 8-hour workday. So 3 of the 8, you're working for the government, or over 4 months out of every year. Now, let's compare that to the Egyptian Exodus, or the Israelites, coming out of Egypt way back when. When they went into bond servitude by voluntary consent. And you can read that consent in Genesis 47. Let me pull it up here. I just grabbed a Bible off the see if I can pull up Genesis 47 here fairly quick. Genesis, oh, there's Exodus. Oh, yeah, we're getting close. Here we go. Genesis 47, over here, starting in verse 23. It says, Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day. Ouch. Kind of like in 1 Corinthians, I have this up on my computer monitor. It says, For ye are bought, redeemed with a price, great value. Therefore glorify Yahuwah in your body, physical realm, and in your spirit, your character, which are Yahuwah's. So that great price, great value, it's a big sacrifice. That's what sacrifice is value for value. Life for life, wound for wound, stripe for stripe, payment for payment. Equal value, value for value. So redeemed with a great price, therefore glorify Yahuwah. So that he paid a price. What is Joseph saying here? Back in the day, he says, Behold, I have bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land, and it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for food, seed, whatever. And they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, Pharaoh, and be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day that Pharaoh should have the 5th part, except the land of the priests only. Oh, that's huge. There's that asylum state I was talking about, and those other, where the separation of church and state off the tax rolls, which become not Pharaoh's. So 1/5 is 20%. So they had a 20% flat tax when they went into bondage. Of course, over 430 years, that amount of taxation increased. But at 20%, we look at them and we call them slaves. This is telling us back several years ago, and I looked a while ago, I think the Tax Freedom Day for Americans now, for 14th Amendment U.S. citizens who have SSNs that are taxpayers, I think that's getting close to June 1st now. Of course, it fluctuates up and down based on what Congress does with the tax laws and stuff, but you're rapidly approaching half of the year. And this is back when this book was written. It was, of course it says that it was a number of years earlier, but it was 4 months out of the year. Well, those Israelites, if we look at them at 1/5 or 20%, that would put their tax freedom day in Egypt at around March 18th, or March 20th, 22nd, somewhere in there. And they were slaves. And now your tax freedom day as a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen is somewhere around sometime in May, approaching June, and you call yourselves free? You work for the government damn near half the year before you start working for yourself to pay all your taxes at every level. Every sales tax, every excise on everything from gasoline to telephone service to your income, property tax. This includes all your registration fees, maybe. I don't know if but that's a tax. When you go to register your motor vehicle and get those tags and your driver's license and your fees to update your occupational, business, and professional licenses, those are all taxes that you're paying. They're tribute you're paying to your God and Lord. Okay? Since that time, with the inclusion of other taxes, that percentage has vastly increased, and I just talked about that. You're damn near to June 1st now for your tax freedom day. To buy or sell, people will need to have or hold this mark or charagma stamp, a badge of servitude, or just its name or the number of its name. Oh, Any one of these acts will do to allow you to participate in the system of the beast. But would you want any of them if you truly wish to serve and worship Yahuwah, your God? Okay, now think about this for a second. I've seen this happen several times, but I know what to look for. Now, this is just a silly example, but keep your eyes peeled for stuff like this. I've been standing in the line at a store that has some sort of discount program. You know, and they issue these little cards, and some people put them on their keychain, and they issue a big card too that goes in your wallet, another badge. And then people go in, and with this card, they get special pricing. You know, the store, on the store shelves, it says price is $5. They're advertising this special price of like, well, it's $4.29. And then it says regularly $5. But then in small print, it says with discount card, or, you know, club card, or whatever it is. Now I don't have any of that crap, so I got to pay the full price. But then when I'm standing in line to get out of this store, somebody will say, "Oh, I forgot my card," and the cashier will say, "Well, what's your phone number, or what's your name?" And they look them up in the computer system, and then, oh, there's your ID, and then they know what to accredit they get the discount because they're actually a member of this preferred customer program. Huh? You just need its number or name. You know, all your fruit of your right hand and all your thoughts in your mind between your eyes proves that you are in the system. Now we just got to verify that through our electronic database with your name or number or whatever it is. The identity mark, this charagma that's been assigned to you. Okay, which will include all that data for all those cards and crap you're carrying in your wallet right now. Whether that's a chip in your hand or whatever, it doesn't matter. I mean, the whole computer system is you know, pretty much wrapped up. Any of these acts will do to allow you to participate in the system of the beast. Yep. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel. I've got a couple of videos talking about what the real gospel is. To preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear Yahuwah, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. And worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. Revelations 14:6-7. Worship is an interesting word. People don't understand faith and worship anymore. Your worship is your bowing down in servitude. You ever seen anybody kneel down and kiss the Pope's hand? You ever see people put their hand over their heart or take their hat off their head? They're showing worship. That it's your homage and obedience. Your faith is your fidelity and allegiance. So faith and worship kind of go hand in hand. I am Yahuwah thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Again, a redemption and a salvation. They were redeemed on the night of Passover. A week later, when these are represent the two annual holy days of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the first day and the last day. Passover is Redemption Day. The last day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, an annual holy day, is Salvation Day, when they cross over from the miracle of the Red Sea and are saved from certain death at the hands of Pharaoh and all his chariots and army. I have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods. Mighty authorities, Els, Theos, sovereign powers, lawmakers, lawgivers, ruling judges, governments, before me, instead of me, in front of me, standing in between you and me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Okay. Like constitutions, temple buildings like the Congress building, the U.S. Capitol, the U.S. Treasury building. My God, the U.S. Treasury building looks exactly like the Temple of Diana at Ephesus. I mean, they are on par. You count the columns, everything. It's the spitting image. Or any likeness thereof anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them. I see people, I think it's hilarious that everybody's mad at Colin Kaepernick for kneeling. That is hilarious. That was your most the most superior sign of submitting to a sovereign power was you would kneel before your sovereign. Bow your head and kneel. Now people stand and put their hand over their heart, and they're looking at an image. What are they looking at? That's got images, things made in the stars above, or the heavens above, right? Are you looking at a flag with a bunch of stars on it? Are you looking at an eagle and a seal and all? Yeah, come on, folks. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. Whoops. Uncle Sam, U.S. Inc., State Inc., with your charagmas that are voluntary, that are in your wallet. Tax Freedom Day, June 1, or thereabouts. For I, Yahuwah thy God, am a jealous God. Hey, do you think Uncle Sam gets jealous if you were to start pretending like you preferred Canada? I mean, look at how jealous Americans get as we the people when they see people disrespecting their images of their gods and the carved images that they've made, the constitutions and their government buildings and their flags. Look at how many people get just absolutely jealously pissed off, wanting to kill people. Visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children. And and then he's a jealous God. So are you. So is your gods. Your gods are extremely jealous. They want you ensnared to them and them alone, paying your tributes through your taxation. People. Visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. Now, I think in one of my videos, I briefly touched on this because God mentions this little punishment several times. And there's a direct, the sins of the father the direct sins of the father don't apply to the children, but they feel the effects of that sin. It's generational sin. Now, I may not have committed the same sins as my great-great-great-grandfather, but I'm still feeling the effects of that. I think I traced down when the farm I grew up on went from being a lodial, where there were no property taxes, there were no regulations, there weren't, any kind of rules or any of that. Do whatever you want with it because you actually owned it, to being pledged to the state as collateral for debt, and then it became mere legal title, and now you got to pay property tax and you got to obey all the rules and regulations for use. And well, guess what? The ancestor that did that to me was 5 generations. I will visit the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generations. So in other words, through the third and fourth generation, it's the fourth and fifth generation that are going to start waking up. Guess what? I was the 5th generation after this ding-dong ancestor of mine went and did a bunch of foolish crap in violation of the law of Yahuwah, but in perfect harmony with the laws of the gods many of the earth. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Fornication. You know, the northern kingdom of Israel, sometimes referred to as the 10 lost tribes, sometimes called Ephraim or Joseph, the house of Joseph or the house of Ephraim, because Ephraim was the birthright tribe that ruled over the northern kingdom of Israel. This is the prodigal in the prodigal son story, while the older brother who stayed home is the southern kingdom of Judah that wasn't given a bill of divorce. This northern kingdom of Israel was given a bill of divorce from Yahuwah. Remember, at the mountain there after the Exodus is when they got married. That was a marriage ceremony. And he gives her a bill of divorce in Jeremiah 3:8 because of her fornication, because of her adultery. Because she's sleeping with these other gods. She's getting in bed. All this unholy nation is getting in bed with all these other gods, all these civil law powers, these civil nations all around them, and contracting with them, just like the Israelites did with Pharaoh in Egypt. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, worship, obey, and pay homage. So if you're paying taxes, if you're keeping the laws of in his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, or thoughts, beliefs, ideology, or hand, actions, fruit, work. The first word we can examine is worship. Oh, here we go. From proskuneo, meaning an expression of profound reverence, used of homage, bingo, shown to men of superior rank, such as a profound reverence for a flag, or an attitude of my country, right or wrong. The words in Old Testament and New Testament are political terms denoting allegiance. The second word to examine is receive. Footnote 670. Let's see what we got here. 670, Strong's number 2983, lambano. A prolonged form of a primary verb, which is used only as an alternate in certain tenses. Receive, take, have, catch, not translated once. Miscellaneous, to take, to take upon oneself, to take with the hand, lay hold of, any person or thing in order to use it, to take up a thing to be carried. Whoops, I misread. To take up oneself, to take in order to carry away without the notion of violence, to remove, take away, to take self as to what is one's own, to take to one's self, to make one's own, to claim, procure for oneself, to associate with oneself as companion, attendant, of that which is when taken is not let go, to seize, to lay hold of, apprehend, to take by craft. Hunters, fishermen. Nimrod was a mighty hunter before the Lord, provider of benefits. To circumvent one by fraud, to take to oneself, lay hold upon, collect, gather, tribute, to take, admit, tribute, excise taxes. To admit, receive, to receive what is offered. Ooh, contractual language there. Do you accept the offer? I sure do. Not to refuse or reject, to receive, give him access to oneself, to regard anyone's power, rank, Okay. So examine is receive, which comes from the word lambano, meaning to take with the hand, lay hold of any person or thing in order to use it, to take up a thing to be carried, take possession of, to appropriate to oneself, to receive what is offered, not to refuse or reject, give him access to oneself. It should be noted that the curse that follows in Scripture only applies to men who both worship and receive the mark. It is the mark imprinted or simply handed to the one who receives what is offered. This is important, kids. A lot of people think it's something that's going inside your body. It doesn't have to. That's why we're kind of covering this. We want to dispel all these crazy myths that, well, it's not here yet because I don't have a chip in my hand. Okay. If you are so set in believing that that's what it is, when it's not and you take it, what happens to you? Ouch. Okay. Watch out. That's the problem with this doctrinal crap, the churches and all this stuff that's out there, because they're just liars. Okay? Is the mark implanted or simply handed to the one who receives what is offered? Remember, I brought up a couple of times, did you accept the COVID bailout check, cash it, and spend it in the stream of commerce? Did you simply take what was handed to you because it was offered? This is the problem with most civilians today. You don't question squat. You just do as you're told like lemmings. I gotta get a marriage license. I gotta go get a driver's license. I gotta get a social security number. I gotta do all these things because I'm told I have to. So what makes you think then when the mark of the beast is offered to you that you won't take it? You've already got it. It's just voluntary. Right now, it's going to be mandatory. The word lambano means to receive, or simply that the mark can be taken with the hand or laid hold of. However, we see in the preposition in, which could leave us with the concept of inside. In is translated from the word epi, which is a generic preposition that is translated many different ways as a mere preparatory word and has been translated in, upon, on, come to, by, at, before, over, etc. We'll take a look at this footnote 671, but I don't know if we need to go through all that. Epi, okay, yeah. I'll let you, if you go, remember the link to this book I've put in the description at the bottom. I believe it's still free. You can go download this PDF for the whole book, not just this chapter, and read it for yourself. But I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. Greg's done a great job of putting all these resources together for you and for me. And it makes it a lot easier to go through this book and then go through especially the footnotes. I think it was one of Greg's kids said, "Daddy, do you actually write anything, or are you just copy and pasting?" Well, you can see, he does put in some of his own thoughts here, but it's mostly copy and pasting because, Greg's not an authority. The scriptures are the ultimate authority, but civil law is an authority for civilians. It should be clear that there is no specification that the mark actually enters the flesh of the hand. Furthermore, the use of lambano should lead one to think the mark, i.e. the badge of servitude, can simply be taken into the hand or accepted. Remember, the hand represents what you do. So by what you do, you're accepting something. There's your consent. Consent is given legally by words, acts, or deeds? Things written down. Words are what come out of your mouth. Acts are the things you do. Deeds are the things written. Now those words, acts, and deeds become something we can see as fruit through your application, which is like prayer. When you pray to the state or the United States for some benefit by application, I'm applying for a Social Security number. I want the benefit of Social Security. I want to apply for unemployment benefits. I want to apply for FEMA relief due to the hurricane. I want to apply for this. I want to apply for that. That's a prayer. Prayer just means apply, ask, appeal, beg, entreat. When you pray to the God of creation, are you asking the God of creation for something? Are you applying to the God of creation for something? Are you begging him, entreating him, all of that to try to do something for you? Of course, that's what prayer is. Okay? This brings us to the metapon, which is translated forehead, 672. Let's continue on, then we'll look at that footnote. If one need only remember the name or the number of the name, it could be assumed that the physical possession of the charagma, or the badge of servitude, is not even necessary, and that the reference to the forehead or the space between the eyes is cognizant of the mind and the location of thought and memory. This is commonly understood in the use of the word in other texts. So forehead, the 672, like I'm saying, what's between your eyes is what you think, what you believe, the thoughts that you have. So let's come down here. 672, Strong's Metapon from 3326, and ops, the face, forehead, the space between the eyes, the forehead. Well, what's behind the skin of your forehead? Your brain, your mind, your consciousness. We call that the seat of consciousness, in your mind. And we don't really know where that comes from, but that's kind of where we've tagged it. So that's what it's metaphorically talking about is this idea of your thought, your mind. Okay? And I heard a great voice out of the temple. Temples in the old world were government buildings. You went there to get your benefits and to pay your tithes. Think of the Corban of the Pharisees that made the word of God to none effect. That was a social welfare program like Social Security. Remember the guy who was blind and then was healed by Christ, and then he got cast out of the temple system of the Pharisees, but the parents were like, "Oh, no, we're not justified because we got to have the Social Security benefit, the Corban here." Okay? Saying to the seven angels, "Go your ways and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth." And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. Okay, now let's take a look at these, because you actually think that you're going to break out in sores? Or is this something else that translators, noisome. 673. Let's see here. Kakos. Apparently a primary word, an adjective, evil. Evil things, harm, that which is evil, wicked, ill, bad, noisome, of a bad nature, not such as it ought to be. What? Of a bad nature, of a bad character, not such as it ought to be. According to Yahuwah, how should it be? Should you be keeping his laws and obedient to him? Of a mode of thinking, feeling, acting, base, wrong, wicked, troublesome, injurious, pernicious, destructive, baneful. Yeah, okay. Huh. Would you have thought all of that when you just read without looking this up, noisome? Or would you think, a big clamorous noise like thunder and lightning and all that stuff? And grievous, 674. Strong's 4190. Paneros. From a derivative of 4192, evil, wicked, wicked one. Evil things, miscellaneous, 7 times. Full of labors, annoyances, hardships. Pressed and harassed by labors. Bringing toils, annoyances, perils, of a time full of peril to the Christian faith and steadfastness, causing pain and trouble. Bad, of a bad nature or condition, in a physical sense, diseased or blind, in an ethical sense, evil, wicked, bad. Okay? So grievous. Both of these are talking about something not such as it ought to be, a bad nature, evil, wicked. Now we think that evil and wickedness is this absolute wicked or evil. No. This applies to anybody that doesn't keep the law of God. You're unrighteous, you're wicked, you're evil in the eyes of God. Okay? So all these people running around here keeping civil law and telling you that the law of God has been nailed to the cross and taken out of the way and we don't have to keep it anymore. Noise is so grievous. Oh. Watch out. How about this sore? 675. Strong's number 1668. Helkos. Probably from 1670. Sore, a wound, especially a wound producing a discharge, pus, a sore, an ulcer. Nope. Okay, so that was it. All right, so now that's kind of fairly straightforward, but think of, I like that last one there, an ulcer. All right. When you're stressed because you're finally waking up to realizing you made some really crappy choices and you're realizing that you're wicked and things aren't right the way they ought to be with you and your life and your family, and it's become troublesome and laborious and just harsh. Do you think the stress of all that is going to cause you to have ulcers? Maybe break out in a rash? Is this something that is caused because of the stress of the situation that you're under? Because this isn't going to be a fun time, kids. You can already see that now, I would hope, in this time of the what do we call this? This is the beginnings of sorrows. We're not even into the tribulation yet. And I see a lot of people having ulcers because of this noisome grievousness that's in their spirit. Okay. How could a mere card or badge of servitude cause a sore in the flesh of your hand? If we look at the word kakos, translated noisome, we can see that it means something negative, like unto the idea of evil or bad, but more in the sense that things are not such as they ought to be, or a wrong or unnatural mode of thinking, feeling, acting, while grievous comes from poneros, meaning pressed and harassed by labors, bringing toils, annoyances, perils of a time full of peril to Christian faith and steadfastness, causing pain and trouble. You know, one of the things that I think is really going to cause this Christian faith and steadfastness, they're all under the impression of a rapture before the tribulation because of some goofy preacher in the 1880s brought in that because he didn't understand, the festivals of Yahuwah, because they don't keep the holy days of Yahuwah. They keep these pagan holidays of Easter and Christmas and Halloween and all this crap. So they brought in a lot of foolish doctrines that are false. And I think when they're not saved out of this trouble that's coming, because, hey, were the Israelites saved out of all the trouble from the Exodus? Or did they have to go through it and just had a little divine protection? And did they have to go through it as punishment for all their wickedness, for their noisy, some grievous, all that stuff? They've been wicked for so long, you need to have the wickedness taken out of you. It took 40-some years to get the Egypt out of the Israelite. In fact, most of them that came out that night on the Passover, only two. One representing Judah, who was grafted in, Caleb, who was a Canaanite, and a native-born, Joshua, who was of the tribe of Ephraim, the birthright tribe. Only those two were allowed to cross over, not even Moses. All the rest of them were born years later and then got circumcised right before they crossed over. And that circumcision has to occur in your heart first before it happens in the flesh. Just like with Abraham. He was circumcised in the heart first, and then he got circumcised in the flesh as an outward sign. How could I'm going to read this again. How could a mere card or badge of servitude cause a sore in the flesh of your hand? If we look at the word kakos, translated noisome, we can see that it means something negative, like unto the idea of evil or bad, but more in the sense that things are not such as they ought to be, or a wrong or an unnatural mode of thinking. Remember, the mark is what's between your eyes, your thoughts. An unnatural feeling. If you're having these kind of, you're feeling like on the fence, like something's wrong, you don't know what it is. Good. Let that, that's what God's wanting. He is pricking you to feel that way in the hopes that you will wake up to your foolish, crappy ideas and turn around and really repent and not just say some magic words. This is real, kids. Not as they ought to be. Unnatural mode of thinking, feeling, acting, while grievous comes from poneros, meaning pressed and harassed by labors. The stress of living this civilian life, bringing toils. Look at the inflation that you're under right now. All of us. Annoyances. You think that's going to get better? The perils of a time full of peril to Christian faith and steadfastness. Remember, he said, I think there's a verse in the Bible that says, that this system is going to be so attractive to, your survival that even the saints, some of them can be fooled by it. And most Christians are like, I'm not going to get sucked into that. Oh, really? When I'm thinking of a saint, I'm like thinking, okay, so like, I'm standing here and I got somebody like a Jeremiah and Ezekiel and Enoch, a King David, a John the Baptist. And these guys are going to be sucked, potentially kind of get sucked in by it. They could. It's that good. It's that good of a delusion. And you think, little old me, I'm sitting there going, oh, gee, oh, boy, ouch. I better be careful. because I'm not an Ezekiel. I'm not a Jeremiah. I am not a John the Baptist. Yeah, I've done some things to be able to change my life, but I'm not one of those guys. And if they can be tempted to this, you don't think, some fool like me or you that are completely deceived in this modern world, that we're not going to get sucked in by it? Ouch. That's some arrogance now. Be careful. Be careful. Causing pain and trouble. The text is simply speaking of evil burdens placed on the people. Let me read that again. What this is talking about is the text is simply speaking of evil. What's evil? Anything that goes against the law and way of God. So the way of human civil law is evil. The U.S. Constitution is evil. Wake up. Simply speaking of evil burdens placed on the people, although having more to do with labor than a wound or sore. Yeah. One of the things that struck me when I was thinking about this too, I see a lot of clamoring for what they call a universal basic income. And I can see that causing this pain and trouble because of labor. Because you're going to have this universal basic income, but what is the labor you're going to have to do now for this beast system under this universal basic income, to which you don't get to complain about anymore? If you do, you're going to have to suck it all in. The stress of all this noisome grievousness is just going to eat at you from the inside, because you've accepted this position in this civil society as this, I want to be taken care of. So you're going to accept this universal basic income, but then what labor are you going to have to do for that? I don't know everything that's coming, but I know it's not good. Oh. The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented. I wonder what that word is. 676, Strong's. Basanismos. Yep. From 928, torment, torture, a testing by the touchstone, which is a black siliconaceous stone used to test the purity of gold or silver by the color of the streak produced on it by rubbing it with either metal. Torment, torture. There's verses in the Bible that talk about the refining fire. That God wants to burn the dross off of you to make you pure gold. The hammering of the menorah with the sevenfold spirits, the 7 annual holy days, the 7 days of the week, the 7 millennial days of creation. That menorah, the hammering of that to make that physical menorah with gold, you've got to refine that gold. And, if that's what we're supposed to be doing, we're supposed to be refining ourselves, burning off the dross, burning off the sin, burning off the evil of the civil system, the wickedness, the unrighteousness of it. So I'm kind of wondering if where was it? This shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels. Why did the Israelites have to go through all the hassles of the Exodus out into the wilderness? I mean, that was not a pleasant experience, do you think?